Welcome to section 8.5. We are going to add and subtract rational expressions today. And again, a rational expression is when you have a fraction divided by a fraction, or a factor divided by a factor and you're looking at fractional form. Now our goal today, and I'm going to put in this is about statement, our goal today is to use what we call a lowest common denominator. And what it means is we're going to use like denominators, a best denominator, and factoring, to add or subtract rational functions. Okay, so let's start by adding them. And I'm going to actually do the add and subtract first with like denominators. That means the denominators are the same. And when we add fractions with the same denominator, we only add the numerator. And so if I add the 9 and the 2, I get 11 over, you only leave the same denominator, 6x. If it were possible to divide the 11 and 6 and reduce it, we should, but since we can't, this is our answer. Okay? These, again, this number 2, they both have the same denominator. So that means when I add them together, the x plus 3 is going to be in the denominator. And I'm going to add the numerator, 15 plus 2x. Now, because these are not like terms, I have to leave them separate. You cannot, and I'm going to repeat this again, you cannot cancel x's from top and bottom unless it's in a factored form. And so we're looking only to cancel out factors like we did yesterday. All right, let's go to subtraction. I'm going to write my subtraction instead as addition. I'm going to say plus and put a negative up in the numerator. That's just my kind of thing, but I think it's a little easier. They both have a denominator of x plus 2, so x plus 2 is going to be my denominator. And in my numerator, I have an x with a negative 3, x plus negative 3. You can say x minus 3 or x plus negative 3. The only reason I move the negative is sometimes we're going to put more than one thing in the numerator. Okay? These are not the same factor on top and bottom, so I can't cancel anything. Same thing, I'm going to say plus with a negative. They both have a denominator of 3x plus 4. My numerator is 5x with a negative 1, so 5x minus 1. Because this factor is not the same as this factor, we leave this as my answer. Okay? If you have like denominators, it's really easy. You just add the numerator and leave the denominator the same. However, if they're not alike or unlike, then we've got to find a common denominator. So I'm going to look at number 3, and the easiest way to do common denominators is to just multiply the first fraction by one denominator and the second fraction by the other one. So I'm going to multiply this first fraction by 3x, and we have to do it on top and bottom so we don't affect the original fraction. We multiply the second fraction by 2 over 2, because again, we don't want to change the fractions, we just want to make them the same. Okay, so let's look at the numerator of the first one. 3x times 5x is 15x squared. Over 3x times 2 is 6x. Plus 4 times 2 is 8 over 3x times 2 is 6x. Now I'm back to what I did kind of in the number 1 above. I'm just now adding the terms on top and leaving the 6x in the denominator. And I'm going to say in my numerator 15x squared plus 8. This is my answer because I can't take a factor out of top and bottom. Okay, so let's try it on the bottom. This one gets a little bit more difficult. I'm going to put any plus or minus in a denominator. I'm going to always put that in parentheses. And I'm going to multiply my first fraction by the x plus 2 and an x plus 2. And my second fraction, I'm going to multiply by the x minus 1 denominator that was in my last fraction. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. this 16 is going to get distributed to both of these. So I have 16x plus 32 all over, and I'm going to leave my denominator as an x plus 2 and an x minus 1. Because seriously, that's so much easier than foiling out denominator. Plus, our denominators, don't forget, tell us what our asymptotes are. So we want to leave our denominators in factored form. I distribute in the next one. 4x times x is 4x squared. 4x times negative 1 is negative 4x. And that's over the x plus 2 and the x minus 1. Your order could be different in the denominator. I'm okay with that. So let's combine like terms. I know my denominator is going to be an x plus 2 and an x minus 1. My numerator, I'm going to put them in order. I have a 4x squared first. Now I have a negative 4x and a positive 16x to add together. That gives me a positive 12x. And then I have this plus 32. Now, we could look at factoring some things out, but for right now, I'm going to have you leave it right here, and we're going to do some work with that a little bit later. But for right now, let's leave it here. Leave your denominator in factored form, but always FOIL out your numerator. Okay? Let's go to subtraction. I'm again going to say plus a negative 3x. Now, this is a denominator of 5 and a denominator of 12. So I'm going to multiply my first fraction by 12 over 12. And my second fraction by 5 over 5. And because they're numbers, I'm just going to let the numbers reduce once we're at the end. Okay, so 12 times 6 is 72 over 12 times 5 is 60 plus negative, sorry for that, negative 3x times 5 is negative 15x over 60. So I'm going to combine these a second. 72 minus 15x all divided by 60. Now take a look at my numbers. Each of these numbers can be divided by 3. So I'm going to do that real quick and divide them by 3. And you end up getting 24 minus 5x all over 20. And this is the answer. Because all 3 terms are divisible by a number, you should take that number out. Okay. All right, last one in this side. Let's take a look. This denominator, I have both a 3 and an x minus 2. So I'm going to multiply by a 3 and an x minus 2. Oops, 3 and an x minus 2 on this side. On the left side, I'm going to multiply by an x plus 1 or an x plus 1. Okay, so here we go. 4x squared, I'm going to distribute to both of those. 4x cubed and 4x squared times 1 is plus 4x squared. And all over, what did I have? I have a 3, an x minus 2, and an x plus 1. So 3x minus 2 and an x plus 1. Now I'm going to change this to plus a minus. Now negative 6 times 3 is negative 18. And I'm going to take my negative 18 and multiply it through. So negative 18x and negative 18 times negative 2 is a positive 36 over a 3 times an x minus 1 and an x plus 2. Whew, this is a lot. Okay, so let's combine our numerator. And it doesn't look like anything is a like term, so we're just going to write this out. 4x cubed plus 4x squared minus 18x plus 36 all over 3 times an x plus 2 and an x minus 1. And again, we leave our denominator in factored form, but actually multiply out the numerator. Okay? So this is the first look at adding and subtracting. Again, they do get a little bit difficult kind of as we go through, but we're going to try 3 more on the back just to make sure we're okay with what we're doing. Okay, so let's go through. Again, we are going to start by factoring each denominator. denominator. Okay, so that's number one, factor each denominator. Then number two, we're going to go back to the front and we're going to make a common denominator. And then the third thing, we're just going to write as one fraction. Again, keep in mind, denominator needs to be factored, numerator needs to be actually multiplied out. Okay, so let's go back to 8.4. We factored this is x and x, 3 and 3. So I have an x plus 3 and an x plus 3. This factors to x and 3 and negative 3. So this one is an x plus 3 and an x minus 3. I apologize. There's going to be one more bell during this, and I'll try to break, but I do apologize. Now take a look. I'm going to write this out real quick, just to make this less confusing. In the numerator here, we have an x plus 1, and we have 2 x plus 3's. Plus, this numerator is a 6, and we have an x plus 3 and an x minus 3. Now, let's talk about what to multiply. And let me change the color here so you can kind of see. I have 2 of the plus 3's, but what I'm missing from this fraction is the minus 3. So I'm going to multiply by x minus 3 on top and bottom. Now, as you look, this denominator has 3 terms. So we need the right denominator to also have 3 terms. Well, I have 1 plus, 1 minus, but I need to have 2 plus 3's. So I'm going to multiply this fraction by an x plus 3 and an x plus 3. So as I look, one more time just to kind of point this out, I have a minus 3 and 2 plus 3's. I have a minus 3 and 2 plus 3's. And so even if there are duplicates, you have to account for all of them. Okay, so we start multiplying and foiling on top and bottom. So if I look, I'm going to FOIL this numerator, and I'm going to write this out a little differently. I'm going to say x plus 3 squared, because there are 2 of them, and an x minus 3. If I FOIL this numerator, this first one, I get x squared. You get a minus 3x, but a positive 1x, so minus 2x, and negative 3 and 1 is a negative 3, plus my denominator again, I'm going to say x plus 3 squared and an x minus 3. Okay, 6 times x is 6x, 6 times 3 is 18, and now we can combine our like terms. Okay, so if I combine my like terms, I'm going to write my denominator one more time. X plus 3 squared, because there are 2 of them, and an x minus 3. Numerator, I only have 1x squared, so I'm going to write that. Negative 2x plus 6x is a positive 4x. Negative 3 and 18 is a positive 15. And here's my answer. Okay, these ones are definitely the more complicated version ones, but we're trying to give you this kind of idea of what's going on. Okay, so let's try the second one. If you take a look at the first denominator, I'm going to pull out, they both have a 3 in common, so I'm going to pull out a 3 and you're left with x minus 3. This one we just factored above as an x minus 3 and an x plus 3. And I'm going to change this to plus, but I got to subtract because there are 2 things, they both become negative. Okay, so let me rewrite this a second. I've got 7 over 3 times x minus 3 plus, on top I have a negative x and a negative 4 over an x plus 3 and an x minus 3. Now let's change our colors. What do they have in common? They each have an x minus 3. This fraction over here is missing the x plus 3, so I'm going to multiply this by an x plus 3. And now you'll notice I have 3 things, a plus 3, a 3, and a negative 3. I have the plus 3 and the negative 3, but I'm missing the just extra 3 that's there. So So here we go. I'm going to distribute this on top, and I'm going to get 7x plus 21 over, I have a 3, an x plus 3, and an x minus 3. I'm going to distribute the 3 to both. I have a negative 3x and a negative 12 all over the 3, the x plus 3, and the x minus 3. If I combine my like terms, 7x and negative 3x makes 4x. 21 and negative 12 is 9, all over 3, x plus 3, x minus 3. Okay, again, denominator stays in factored form, numerator gets distributed. And I think it's easier to move this negative up front, plus, and put the negative to both up front, because then you don't have to worry about the subtraction later. Okay, last one. All right, I'm going to try and split this up. And I'm going to actually start with the plus. Let's change this to a plus and make both of these negative. I'm going to start there. Okay, second thing I'm going to do is factor this second one, because the second one looks worse. So if I look at 8 and 12, I can take a 4 out of that, and I can take an x. What do I have left? 2 and an x minus 3. Okay, now I'm going to use that to help me factor this, because I can rewrite 4x squared as 4x and an x. And if you look, now they both share a 4x, so that's going to be part of my common denominator. So here's what I'm doing. I'm going to write it over again. I've got an 8 over 4x times x. And I know that kind of seems weird, but trust me when we go through. Plus, I have a negative 2 and a negative x over 4x times 2x minus 3. All right, let's change our color. All right, what am I missing in this first fraction? I have a 4x, I have an x, but I don't have this 2x minus 3. So 2x minus 3 is going to be multiplied on top and bottom. And if I look at the second fraction, I have this 4x, I have this 2x minus 3, I'm missing this x, so I'm going to multiply the top fraction by x. All right, here we go. Distribute. 2x times 8 is 16x. 8 and negative 3 is minus 24. Over, I've got a 4x, an x, and a 2x minus 3. All right, the x has to get distributed to both of those. So negative 2x, and negative x and x is negative x squared. All over, I have a 4x and an x and a 2x minus 3. Now, 4x and x, let's rewrite this as 4x squared times 2x minus 3. We just broke it apart so we could see what we were missing. And now let's put these in order. The negative x squared goes first. Negative 2x and 16x is positive 14x, and then minus 24. There's your final answer. Again, the first side was probably much easier. The second side takes a little bit more to get through, but we are going to be practicing in class. But that's the end of section 8.5. Please start the homework so you can kind of get an idea of what we're trying to ask. But we will go through a warm-up and answer questions and things like that in class.